This video is how to go about adjusting the tappets on your Indian. This particular one's on my 1944 Chief. You'll have to excuse the mess, I got a lot going on. Getting it ready for a 4,000 mile trip to and from Sturgis. So I've got an oil change and a lot of different stuff going on. But to adjust the tappets, here's some of the tools you'll need: spark plug wrench, feeler gauge. This one here is a stock factory valve cover removal tool. This particular one here we custom make up. It's if you got a valve cover that's stubborn, that one works really good. And then these are tappet wrenches that we make up. The 7/16, they're nice and petite. They're rather thin in this way and not super long, so they work out perfect for doing adjusting the tappet bolts. So remove your exhaust, get your brake rod out of the way. That'd be the first thing. Get the brake rod out of the way. Take off your header pipe exhaust. Take off the distributor cap. Get that out of the way. Take out your spark plugs. And then jack up the back wheel. We're going to be turning over the motor. And put it in third gear. That's the easiest gear to turn the motor over on. Undo your shifter rod. This particular one I make up, it's got hind joints on the end. Takes up all the slop in the mechanism at each end. So remove this. Put under your valve covers. This is the tool here you'll be using, and you can see with the exhaust out of the way you can easily get at things. And if you've got a stubborn one, you'll actually use this custom vice grip one we make up, and you can get a good firm grip on that, and then you can wail on it. It's nothing worse than if they're tight and you start stripping out the knurling here. They start looking pretty shitty as well, especially on a nice bike. And just undo it with your fingers and lift it all up. The valve covers we make have actually got orange O-rings in here. These are silicon. Most O-rings you'll find have just got black O-rings in them. They're just neoprene, and they end up breaking down after a while. They don't really resist the acids and especially the temperature of the oils. Especially the front and rear one. As you can see, you're pretty close to the exhaust. This would be the exhaust outlet here, and you got a lot of heat being thrown over here, and black ones just end up failing. And you actually see this motor here has actually got 4,000 miles on it. Comes straight from New Zealand, and you can see how clean it is. And the other one that's going to get a lot of heat on it is the front exhaust as well. So it's really important to get good O-rings in them. Cheaper valve covers, they're made cheap for a reason, and they just put cheap ass black neoprene O-rings in them. Always do adjust your tappets when the motor's cold. You'll have your rear wheel off the ground. You can either use a jack or the center stand. Make sure you're in third gear. It's the easiest gear to turn the motor over. And it's going to get a bit choppy, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to do all this one hand. I'm going to turn the wheel in rotation of how it would be going down the road. You notice the rear exhaust is coming down, and the front intake or the rear exhaust is going to be just starting to come up. I'm going to turn the back wheel back so they're both at the very bottom. It's called teeter-tottering. So we want those right at the very bottom. For a start, this is how we're going to, I'm starting with the rear ones all the way down. That means I'm going to come over to the front and adjust those ones, because they will be fully off the cam lobe all the way down. So get your feeler gauge, and insert it between the valve, end of the valve, and the tappet itself. You have to excuse it, I'm just trying to do all this one-handed. So that's where you're getting your tappet clearance. Now to adjust it, you'll put one wrench on the push rod itself, hold that one, and with the second tappet adjusting wrench, you'll put it on the jam nut and you break the jam nut. Well, not as in physically break it, but you'll just unjam it. And then you can keep one wrench on here and put the other wrench on the top of the tappet bolt itself. And you can screw it up or down ever so slightly, and that'll get you your desired clearance. But just don't leave it at that. Come back, put your wrench on here, and do up the jam nut. Just nip it. Don't get too crazy, because that can lead to fracturing the tappet bolt itself, and it's going to fail down the road. And then go back and check your clearance, your valve clearance again. And you may have to go backwards and forwards several times, because by tightening up the jam nut, it's going to alter the clearance. Now that we have adjusted the front tappets, we're going to turn the rear wheel. I like to do it in the rotation it would be going down the road. You have to excuse my wobbliness because I'm doing this one-handed. And there's the front exhaust coming up. Going to be going down, and the front intake now will be starting to come up. Let's turn the motor over back a little bit so they're both down. And now we can adjust the rear cylinder tappets. Just to recap, when the rear cylinder tappets are teeter-tottering down at the bottom, you'll do the front cylinder tappets. Turn the engine over so the front cylinder tappets are teeter-tottering at the bottom of their stroke. So it's not going to be at the top of their stroke, but teeter-tottering at the bottom, and they're all the way down. You get this one teeter-tottering, then you will do the rear cylinder tappets. Tappet clearance is done between the valve and the top of the tappet bolt. I'm going to put a wrench on the push rod itself, and with a second wrench you'll put it on the jam nut. You'll just undo it just a little bit. Then to adjust the tappet, you'll actually put one of the wrenches up here and turn it to either tighten it or less valve clearance, or increase your valve clearance. Then come back with one wrench on here on the push rod, the other wrench here, tighten it back up. Don't get too carried away on it because you'll fracture this bolt. So you're just nipping it up. And then go back and check your tappet clearance with your feeler gauge, because it will move. And just go through that procedure once again, backwards and forwards, until you get the right tappet clearance. Intake 4 to 6, exhaust 6 to 8. Always do it with the engine cold. Apply some Loctite 567 to the threads. You'll see a lot of Indian owners with real leaky right side engines. Actually, quite often they leak all over the place. That's through not using right gaskets, right sealants on each application. But most do not put any sealant on threads here, which when the engine gets hot, it's just going to wick through and drain everywhere. We put a bit of Loctite 567 on the threads, and then screw down the valve cover, bring down the valve cover, and tighten her up. Don't get too carried away, it's just a matter of nipping it up. This is the product here, Loctite 567. It's a pasty Teflon. It's not going to get hard. All it's doing is, it's just like Teflon tape. It's going to stop the oil from leaking out in this position.